welcome to the next topic, which is the resistance. This recording is done while driving. It's safe. Both hands are on the wheel. Is there much background noise from me in the car, or sort of?
Are you driving now?
I'm driving.
No, I can't hear anything.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so
it's quiet. Actually, it's really quiet.
Oh, cool. Because it'd be interesting to compare because the seal on the window. That's you can always judge success by whether your driver's side door seals fully go around your car door or not. So mine don't. So the top left of the window is that's where it gets that that
sound I can't hear
normally get. Yeah,
can't hear it all.
It's just good that these there's speakers on the left side of my mouth.
Basically, resistance.
So what I'd say. This is what I'd say. Sorry.
What would you say?
Like, I can't go through you, boys. What are we talking about today? How was that? Pretty good?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
I can
better.
do it.
That's better.
Yeah. So, I know you're going to be talking about the resistance. So I'm just thinking, I think the resistance, do you like, I feel with regard to resistance, people tend to think if there's resistance, where it comes to spirituality, people feel if there's resistance, then it's not really working or they're not doing it right. Wouldn't you agree? And I feel with like weight resistance and resistance training, that sort of thing, the attitude is different. It's like an expectation or an understanding that resistance training builds strength, makes you stronger, makes you resilient. But it's amazing that they say if you don't use it, you lose it, and including the mind, that I think attitude's everything. So resistance within the mind, it's a completely different connotation where people see it as an obstacle, and it can be. It all comes down to attitude, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely.
So
sorry.
You go.
No, I was just thinking, so would you say then you would have to start like you were going to the gym, just a little bit at a time and ration it maybe and just take small bites at a time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great point. Great question. Definitely. That's where I feel, you don't go into the gym and try and lift the heaviest weight, like at your peril. So I feel same thing within the psyche. When you're learning, you still can't hear the wind. That's pretty amazing.
No, it is pretty amazing.
That's awesome. So I feel to build up, is it okay? If it cuts out, just let me know. I can hear you. Yeah. So, you want the path of least resistance. Like in saying that resistance is part of training, exercising, and becoming resilient, you still want the path of least resistance. So you're building up and deciphering and seeing through the easiest aspects. And as we've touched on in previous podcasts or fireside chats, that the thoughts that have no real attachment are the easiest to see through and to change. I really feel that any thoughts and anywhere where there is minimal resistance, start unraveling those aspects. So, sorry, I'm just drifting off driving. It's a nice drive, nice day today.
It's a lovely day for a drive while you're talking.
Exactly. Oh, I've just gone the wrong way. How about that? Surprise, surprise.
It doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Neither of us. So definitely, I feel it's all about momentum. And this is where I feel resistance comes in. It halters or slows your momentum. And I feel if you, on the spiritual practice, when you're having understandings or breakthroughs, work on the easiest things first, of course. And then you can build up. And with momentum, it's like you almost need momentum to go up the hill on the other side. And the further and the more you embrace the momentum or enhance it, the further you get up the other side before you have to start pushing, in a sense, pushing up, so to speak, because it feels, with resistance, it feels like you're pushing uphill.
Yeah.
And I feel resistance isn't bad. You just do the easy stuff first. That just makes sense to me.
So would you say that you need to then approach things with a more open mind and teach yourself to not discount things, just maybe put them aside until you are more ready to digest them?
Yeah, I don't think you can really discount anything. The only thing you can discount is the stuff that doesn't really matter too much. I think the other stuff, it will come up. You don't have to put it on a particular shelf. It doesn't matter where you put it; it will come up if it's not working. But I feel the focus or the attitude, which is healthy in my experience. Like I've read self-help books before. We all have, or most of us have, or have done different techniques. And as soon as you start doing something that you sort of get into, like a spiritual book or self-help book, it's amazing how, this is awesome. Like you're reading it and you're really getting something out of it, but you just get really tired. You shut down. It's amazing. And this stuff, like, I don't know if it can be proven in a lab or not, but from an experience point of view, it's like within the psyche, the ego will shut you down almost. It's like things that when you're on the right track or you're trying to create a new pathway or trying to see through suffering, it's different from going from a walk and feeling good and, there's no resistance there, just embracing the environment and just feeling good. I'm not talking about when you do things that makes you feel good, if you tend to feel energized. But when you read a book or you're starting to do self-inquiry, looking within the mind and starting to challenge the mind, in my experience, it like you start getting. I used to get tired. I think the first book I read was the Celestine Prophecies years ago, and I really got into that. But I'd get tired, and I feel like the more intense the read or the exercise or whatever it was that I did to try and seek within, the more tired I got. So it's amazing to fully sink your teeth into something. It shuts you down. The psyche shuts you down. It's pretty weird.
Would you say that that's the ego struggling to survive?
I would, absolutely. It's like everything's energy, and it feels like everything, certain things, in my experience of healing and different things, it's like everything has a particular force about it, whether you want to call it life force. I'm not saying everything has spirit or whatever else, but I feel everything that has some sense of life force doesn't want to die. And so I feel like there are certain challenges that come about when you're trying to unravel and discover yourself. And because we all see things through, well, pretty much everyone sees things through different filters. And it's amazing how different filters will speak to you. It sounds a bit crazy in a way, but everyone hears different voices at different times in their head. And there's not a great deal of difference between a guy or someone out, walking around talking to themselves outwardly. Someone might laugh at them. I think that person's crazy, but most people have that going on inside. They just don't externalize it. But it's amazing with different filters. Like there's sort of almost different voices in your head, and they'll tempt you to do all different types of things. And I feel like when you're working in a certain direction and there's minimal filters, there's minimal mind chatter, and there's less resistance. The more of an obstacle there are, the more voices you hear in your head. So however you describe it is, people describe it different ways. I'd class that as the ego because it's not self-serving. Ego tries to own things, and it's not also self-serving at all. It blames others, and it tries to make out a separate, it's sort of separate, and what you have is your power, and it's more than that, in my experience. So the point of this, the resistance is change your understanding to any resistance means that you're on the right track. So if you're questioning and I think this is the crux of it. If you're on the right track and you're sort of feeling good, there'll be times where the mind will say it's not working. Oh yeah, no, I don't feel it much. Or and like we've mentioned before, when you're trying to create a new habit, so to speak, the mind will put up all sorts of challenges. It's not working, or this or that, or you need this, or you need that.
Okay, so how do you know which voice to listen to? Because I'm assuming that you're talking about the voices of your ego. It could be even your imagination and your intuition, I guess.
the ego has multiple voices anyway, depending on which part of it's trying to protect, in my experience.
Yeah.
But I think there's a key thing here that when we're growing, when we're learning, maturing, I know this myself. I used to I had an idea of what the right thing is. And it's amazing how everyone falls to different traps within themselves, even though there's similarities, the illusions, that sort of thing. But we all have our own tendencies. We're all unique. And I feel the things that you fall into will be different to what I fall into and or what I have and with others, with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel instead of judging yourself, and I think this is key to the resistance within. Instead of judging ourselves, saying I should be like this or I should be like that, and just pretending and just go, no, I should be, and just instead of, there's a trap within that because you're not accepting your tendencies or you're not actually facing them. You just go, no, I don't want it to be like that. I want to have this personality or that personality. And I feel a key thing on the spiritual journey is to start embracing your character and, I guess flaws and all, and then try and work through them. But it's like if you just pretend or refuse to accept that you fall into certain traps, if you say, no, I want to be this way, not that way, then you're only looking at half the picture because there's a reason that we all fall into certain traps. And so, for example, myself, being pretty competitive, and I'm okay if I don't win, but I enjoy the challenge of winning, and I enjoy coming up with formulas or ways to. And because of my analytical mind, I've had, my entire life. Obviously, it's just a question of what questions you fall into. But I always enjoyed trying to come up with a winning formula and challenging myself. So even though this is sort of might sound a bit silly in a way,
No.
like I used to think, okay, so the voices in my head, I'm going to win. It's like the light versus dark, and so it's like I am going to compete and challenge, and anything that I'm challenged with, I'm going to face it. So I've got one voice in my head saying I'm going to use this aspect. So ultimately, one aspect of myself is challenging the other aspect, and it's all sort of illusion. It's not about transcending. Oh, just let it all go. Just let it all go. For me, it wasn't that easy. So I thought, okay, I'm going to fight the negative aspects of myself. So instead of pretending I was a certain way or just wanting to be a certain way, I went, okay, I'm competitive. So I'm going to use that competitive streak within me to try and contest the negativity within me. So let the war begin. And so for me, so when things weren't working in my favor, I went, oh yeah, that's it. I've got to do this. I have to do that. And I learned certain ceremonies when I was in India. And I'll tell a little story. The first time I went to India, because I grew up without any religious upbringing or background, I had an open slate in a sense. I had no real boundaries besides what I felt within me. And I ultimately wanted to do the right thing as long as I can remember. But while in India, I thought, okay, I'm here. This is all new. It's interesting. So I may as well just enjoy the ride and see what's on offer. The first morning, we got there, I'm pretty sure the first time in the afternoon. And the very next morning, there was a Ganesha Ceremony, which went for 15 minutes. And I witnessed that. I went along with it, and just because it was all completely new, had no idea what to expect. It went for about 15 minutes. And it's just paying respect to the aspect of, and this is what it was for me, the aspect of removing obstacles. And I certainly needed some help with that. And it impacted me. And I went and did emails. This is in obviously, as I mentioned, I was in India, but had internet and different things there. It was sort of westernized to some degree. And I went and after the ceremony, went and started writing an email. And while I was sitting there doing the email, my heart started flowing. And I'm going, wow, like this is, haven't experienced this before. I felt a shift within. And for me, instead of thinking it's not my character, it's not like this or it's not like that, or thinking I shouldn't, I thought my first thought was, wow, I need to learn this.
Mm.
So I learned this ceremony. I learned the aspect of removing obstacles. That's what it's about. My understanding. This is my understanding of oneness and the gods and goddesses in India. It's symbology from my perspective, where it discuss like nothing separate within the universe and many aspects. It's like saying, Linda, someone might say, I think you're really funny, and someone might think, I think you're a great nurturer, or you're a great mother. They're not separate aspects. Look, actually, they're all aspects of you, but some people are drawn to different parts, or different aspects that they resonate with. And my understanding, and this is why for me it wasn't necessarily taboo, like, oh, you either believe in God or you believe in Ganesha or you believe in this. It's like it's oneness, is my perspective.
Mm.
And each to their own. People have whatever belief you have. I feel if it empowers you, then so be it. Like, no one has to have my beliefs, but I thought I'd give an overview. It's worth it. Save any judgments of India or practices and whatnot. Because in my view, it's all about doing things to dive more deeply into heart. It's what drives you,
Yeah.
And so for me, I learnt the Ganesha ceremony, and it did spun me out. I don't know if it's too soon. Like, it's early on with these sort of fireside chats, and people, I don't want to scare anyone. You're crazy. What? I don't want to hear this rubbish. I'll risk it, and I'm not sure if I'll put it in there. But when I was back in Australia, I was doing Ganesha ceremonies, and that reminds me of a haunted house story. I don't know if I should go there either.
Awesome.
I'll put it in there just in case. So
Yeah.
I was staying, when I was in Australia, I was staying in a haunted house. So at one point, I didn't have anywhere. So I say it again because I bumped my mic. When I was back in Australia, at one point I was living on my own in a haunted house. And because I don't go around, like I do energetic work, I do different things, and I've had many experiences. And, it's who's to say what's real and what isn't. All I can say is I'm experiencing, and everyone has their own. And it's what you gain from that experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be validated by anyone. It's how that moves you and how it drives you to do what you do. So at this point, I went into this house, and there was no other options really for me to stay at that point in time. And I went in this house, and when I was in the house on my own, I spoke outwardly, and this is the first time I've ever done this. I said, okay, if we don't get along, I'm going to move. I'm going to get you out. And that leads me to another. I'll tell you about how I discovered I can do certain things another time. Like, it's when I was in Holland. It's like when you travel, you discover aspects of yourself. This might be rambling, so I'll patch it up. But I was in this house, and I said, I'll clear you out if we don't get along. And we got along, and I felt like I could. I thought it'd take me 2 or 3 days, but I feel like I can get rid of whatever's in the house. And I didn't feel it was the ghosts or beings in the house were dark at all. It's just that I knew I was imposing in their space. So within this house, it was a very good friend of mine who owned the house, and some people had passed in the house. And there's no disrespect. It was a great people, great house. And within that house, I only had a couple of rooms, like the kitchen and like the back part of the house. And that was fine. That was the agreement. And, that wasn't an issue. So I used to do Ganesha ceremonies in one part of, like, on the other side of I'd bedrooms and stuff on one side of the kitchen. On the other side, there's part of a lounge room, or like a dining area, and it had like a display there. I put my Ganesha there, and I did my Ganesha ceremony, which was to help me surrender and open up more, and to bring in higher energies. And when I used to, and I've never felt this before this time frame, when I'd bow to sort of pranam before the ceremony, I'd sort of feel these things on my back moving. And I was like, oh, what's that? I felt, and my feeling was that before I started to this and doing these practices, and I was doing mantras and different things, which like mantras or prayers in Sanskrit, there's a part of me that resisted. And instead of freaking out, which I can understand if someone stops his phone call and never he listens to me again, or not his phone call. If someone stops listening in and never hears me again, it's a bit scary stuff potentially. But this was all new to me, so I just went, okay. So this is why I mentioned about character. The competitive aspect is like, okay, some part within me doesn't want me to do this, and instead of thinking I was the part that that says it's not right, or it's that part, I didn't feel it was a higher calling within. I felt it was because I felt free, I felt empowered after doing this technique. I felt it was the resistance, which we're talking about. So I went, no, I'm gonna burn whatever it is. I'm gonna transcend it. I'm going to burn it.
Yeah.
And that encouraged me to do, instead of thinking, oh no, I better not do that, something that's not sitting within me or on me, or I thought, no, this is a sign that I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that it reminds me of another something similar to this. I've mentioned Vipassana retreats before. I did a Vipassana retreat, and Shanti Maya ran this in near Bunbury one year. This is, I think, 2000, and I can't remember, 3 or 4 or something like that. And we're all in the room. This is the second day after we started Vipassana, and we all had our spots. We arrived there in the afternoon, and then the next morning, we started. Our first meditation was at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to be as close to Shanti Maya as possible, and so I almost sat on her feet. She touched me on the head, and I thought, I'm going to be around the highest, be as close to the highest energy that I can be, because it's like an offering in a sense. I wanted her to help with burning through my stuff, or help process, or work on my energy just by being around. You know what it's like when you be around someone that's uplifting. You feel uplifted, and not that I was trying to feed off it. I wanted clarity, and that's why I was there. So I'm sitting almost on her feet the first morning at 5 o'clock, and it was pretty cold that morning, and I just started sweating profusely, and I felt like I couldn't stand the fire. And I just wanted to, like, after about 20 minutes, I'm thinking, I don't know if I can take this. And going, and I just felt like I just had a vision of me just getting up, standing up and going, and then just running through the wall. And like you said, the imprint of me running through the wall, just like in the cartoons. That's the picture I had in my mind, like gone mad. And I thought, no, this is where I need to be. Same thing, character, like the competitive aspect. It's like, no, this is not this. And I thought, I'll do it again. I'll do it again for maybe one more meditation. If I can't stand, if it's on the boundary of what I can stand, then I'll stay. But if I can't take it, I'll get the same thing on the third time. I've got to move, and that was it. So I've got to go and see this house now. So I will.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. Okay.
All right, cool. Bye.